Some films make a loud entrance, desperate to be remembered. Others slip through the cracks, quiet, disregarded, and left to gather dust. The Sentinel, 2006, belonged to the second kind. It wasn't a remake, not really. It wasn't original, either. It simply appeared with a borrowed name, a mismatched tone, and an uncomfortable stillness that settled under the surface. Critics shrugged. Audiences ignored it. Even the studio offered little more than a bare-bones release. For most, it was another forgettable horror title among the dozens churned out that decade. But the film didn't vanish. It lingered. There's a strange permanence to the Sentinel, not because it was bold, but because it was quiet in all the wrong ways. Long, empty corridors, dialogue that trails off into silence, rituals that happen just out of frame. It's as if the film wasn't meant to be watched but overheard, as if it wasn't made for the audience, but for something else entirely. Over time, people started looking closer. Discrepancies in the edits, set pieces that didn't appear on the location lists, names in the credits with no other film history, an ending that some remember one way and others don't remember at all. It's not a cult classic, it's not a lost gem. It's something else. A message disguised as a mistake, a recording of something no one meant to document. These are 20 weird facts you didn't know about The Sentinel, 2006. Watch closely. Not everything here wants to stay hidden. Fact 1. The film was never meant to be called The Sentinel. Its original title, The Watcher in the Hollow, reflected the film's tone, moody, internal, and unknowable. But shortly before release, the name changed. No public explanation, no creative statement. Just a switch. It wasn't a remake of the 1977 cult classic. It didn't share its plot, style, or even pacing. But the marketing department believed The Sentinel still held value in horror circles. So the change was made, instantly reframing the film as something it wasn't. Privately, some crew members thought the new title altered the film's intent. It wasn't just branding, it was realignment. Re-edits were subtle but deliberate. Scenes lingered longer. Eyes stayed on the camera. The atmosphere thickened. The word Sentinel was never uttered in the dialogue. But once attached to the film, it started to affect how the footage was shaped. The characters no longer seemed lost, they seemed watched. There's a note found in the production archive scribbled next to the title card design. A watcher must be named before it watches back. Was the name a mistake, or was it the final piece of the ritual? Fact 2. The church wasn't approved for filming. It simply wasn't denied. Scouting reports didn't include it. Official permits never mentioned it. But when production arrived at the coordinates, the church stood there forgotten, intact, and silent. No working lights, no electricity, no staff. Just heavy wooden doors unlocked from the inside. The location manager claimed the site came from an anonymous tip. An older man with no business card had handed over a photocopy of blueprints during a cafe meeting. The map was marked with red ink. Good bones, used with care. Inside, the walls were lined with scripture scratched in, not painted. A broken confessional smelled of old wax. Every window had been sealed with bricks from the inside out. During filming, audio equipment repeatedly picked up interferent soft voices under the dialogue, footsteps above the ceiling where there was no second floor. The crew dismissed it as decay and echo, but on the final day of shooting, someone left a message in charcoal on the sanctuary floor. 5 words. It let you in once. They wrapped early that day. Fact 3. The first version of the film didn't confuse people, it disturbed them. At over 2 hours, the original cut was dense, slow, and filled with repetition. Doors opened to the same room multiple times. Characters paused mid-sentence, as if waiting for something off-screen. There were no jump scares, no dramatic music cues, just patterns, repeated frames, phrases, and blocking that looped with minor alterations. Viewers at the test screening reported headaches and a sense of déjà vu. Studio executives didn't hesitate. 35 minutes were cut immediately. Gone were the looping hallway scene, the extended prayer whispered in reverse, and an entire subplot involving a blind character who never appeared on camera. Editors later claimed that cutting the footage felt unnatural. The sequences didn't feel like filler, they felt placed. One assistant editor quit mid-project, leaving only a note behind. "We removed it from the film." But it's still there. That version has never been released. But pieces of it, lines, images, moments, still slip into conversations among those who've seen both. Like echoed. And echoes don't come from nowhere. Fact 4. The sounds in the film didn't come from post-production, they came from a place no one lives. Rather than design synthetic audio, the crew flew to an abandoned monastery deep in the French countryside. It hadn't housed anyone since the 1960 seconds, after a landslide partially buried its eastern wing. The idea was to capture authentic atmosphere, wind, stone, silence. What they got was something else. Dozens of hours of recordings returned with anomalies, breathing patterns when no one was near the mic, tones at frequencies human ears weren't supposed to register, chants that only played backward, never forward. Only a few clips made it into the final cut. The rest were labeled archived, unstable. One audio engineer claimed certain files triggered migraines after repeated playback. In one now deleted interview, the film's sound mixer admitted, "Some of those sounds didn't echo," they answered, "and once you hear something answer from the dark, you never unhear it." Fact 5. After one scene, the actress refused to enter the set without protection. Throughout production, she was composed, focused. But when it came time to shoot the basement scene, an unscripted sequence involving a locked gate beneath the church, something changed. She descended into the set as planned. One take, no issues. But when she came back up, she was visibly shaken, her hands trembling. She didn't say much, just 4 words. "It stood behind me." That night, she requested a priest on set, not for spiritual comfort, for protection. She arrived the next morning wearing a medallion and refused to rehearse in the lower levels again. Crew members said she avoided mirrors after that. Others claimed she never looked into the camera again, not even during close-ups. Whatever she saw in that basement didn't follow her out. But it made sure she never went back in. Fact 6. No one knew the director, not even the crew. The name on the call sheet was David S. Carrick, but no one ever verified who that was. He showed up alone, gave sparse direction, left notes but never raised his voice. He wore the same coat every day and carried a notebook with no visible writing. When asked about his background, he deflected. When offered interviews, he declined. He had no agent, no social media, no filmography. After production, he disappeared. The studio offered no comment. His name remains on the credits, but every attempt to contact him since has failed. The address listed on his contract was a vacant building. Some believe Carrick was a pseudonym. Others say he was just a director who quit the industry. But one producer quietly suggested a third option, that Carrick never existed in the first place, that the name was invented to give the film a center. Avoid wearing a name tag. Fact 7. A single image caused a church to threaten legal action. Before the film's release, an early promotional poster briefly circulated online. It showed a crumbling statue of the Virgin Mary, her eyes blacked out, positioned before a sealed cathedral door. The caption was minimal: "She watched too long." It didn't last long. Within 2 weeks, a formal complaint was issued from a religious organization in the Midwest, calling the image blasphemous and intentionally provocative. The studio responded quickly. Posters were pulled, digital copies deleted, and a replacement design rushed into circulation. What few people know is that the statue in the poster wasn't a prop. It was real. A production assistant had photographed it during location scouting in a side chapel the crew later avoided due to atmosphere issues. Shortly after the image went public, the statue vanished from the chapel without explanation. When the assistant was contacted, she declined to speak, saying only, "That photo wasn't mine. It was hers." To this day, no high-resolution version of the original poster has resurfaced. Only low-quality scans remain shared cautiously, like something that shouldn't be passed around. Fact 8. The film was supposed to end differently. It nearly did. The theatrical ending is subdued. The protagonist leaves the church behind, alone, in silence. But that wasn't the original plan. The first cut featured a recursive sequence. The character walks away, then reappears at the entrance. The scene repeats. The lighting changes subtly each time. A whisper grows louder. In the final loop, she turns to face the camera and speaks a single line, one never found in the script: "You've always known." Test audiences were divided. Some found it haunting, others called it wrong. The studio opted for a safer conclusion. Only fragments of the alternate ending survive. One in particular, a low-quality video uploaded to an obscure forum, showed the protagonist staring directly at the screen, unblinking. The clip was pulled within hours. The user who posted it never logged in again. No official version of that ending has ever been acknowledged, but some say if you play the final scene backward, you'll hear the original line whispered beneath the score. Fact 9. One scene may have been inspired by a death no one officially recorded. In the film's final act, a supporting character falls from the spiral staircase in the bell tower. It's a sharp, jarring moment, brief, unexplained, and seemingly disconnected from the rest of the plot. But according to a former crew member, the scene was based on a local legend tied to the very church they filmed in. The story goes like this. In the late 1960 seconds, a novice nun was found at the foot of that same staircase. No injuries, no bruises, her hands folded, eyes open. A coronial report was never filed. Whispers claimed she'd leapt during a ceremony that never took place. The incident was never documented officially, but during filming, the director insisted on staging the death exactly as described in the local version. No mats, no sound design, just the fall, silence, then nothing. After filming the scene, the actress who played the role reportedly said she dreamt of lying at the bottom of that staircase every night for 2 weeks. In each dream, she claimed she wasn't alone. Whatever the truth, the shot remained unchanged. A quiet plunge, a body below, no scream, no impact, just absence. Fact 10. The film's darkness wasn't an accident, it was defiance. Around the midpoint of the shoot, studio notes began arriving. Suggestions to brighten key scenes, add visual clarity, reduce shadows. Executives feared audiences would struggle to follow the action or worse, lose interest. The director responded by eliminating all artificial lighting from several sequences. Entire scenes were lit only by existing elements. Flickering candles, stained glass filtered sunlight, reflections from dusty floor tiles. In one pivotal moment, the only light source was a broken flashlight taped to the dolly rig. Cinematographers pushed back. Editors complained about underexposed footage, but the director insisted, if you have to squint, maybe you weren't supposed to see it. The result? A film that doesn't just contain darkness, it demands you sit inside it. In interviews, some crew members later admitted the raw footage was nearly unusable, yet what survived carries a texture that can't be replicated, a sense that something is hiding just beyond view, and perhaps it always was. Fact 11. One actor disappeared before filming ever began, and no one replaced him. He had a name on the cast sheet, a character in the script, even a scheduled costume fitting. He was meant to play a groundskeeper who knew too much. But 2 days before his first scene, he vanished. Not from set, from everything. His agent couldn't reach him. His phone disconnected. The hotel room he'd reserved was never checked into. Production was forced to rewrite his role overnight, reducing the character to a silent figure glimpsed briefly, then forgotten. Oddly, the film's teaser trailer, now lost, once featured a voiceover that didn't appear in the final cut. A raspy, measured voice said, "It's not the gate that opens, it's you." The audio doesn't match any credited actor. Some think it was his. Others believe the line was added later to fill the void his absence created. No missing person report was filed. No statement ever made. He was there. Then he wasn't. Fact 12. One scene was removed, not for what it showed, but for how it felt. In early versions of the film, there was a quiet, extended sequence known internally as the Echo Mass. No blood, no violence, just figures in robes walking in slow circles, chanting something unintelligible beneath flickering candlelight. Those who saw it during rough screenings described the feeling as wrong, not terrifying, just intrusive, as if watching something private, something not meant for anyone outside the circle. The MPAA didn't flag it for content, but the studio pulled it anyway, citing unnecessary discomfort. When pressed, one executive admitted, "It just made people feel unsafe, and we couldn't say why." The sound design was particularly unsettling. Each chant seemed to overlap the previous one, forming a spiral of language that never resolved. Sound engineers reported difficulty sleeping after working on the mix. The footage has never resurfaced, but in the credits, if you pause at just the right moment, you'll see a line. Scene 47, audio archived, not clear. Some say the scene was lost. Others believe it's been waiting. Fact 13. The most chilling moment in the film wasn't planned and wasn't explainable. There's a scene where the protagonist walks past a series of antique mirrors lining a hallway. Her reflection follows her in perfect sync until it doesn't. In one mirror, she's missing, not obscured, not distorted, just absent. Viewers assumed this was a deliberate visual effect, but it wasn't. According to the director of photography, no special effects were used in that sequence. The camera was locked, the lighting was consistent, the mirrors were real, unaltered, and checked between takes. In the raw footage, the moment is still there, unexplained and untouched. Editors flagged it for review, but the director insisted it stay. That mirror told the truth, he reportedly said. Attempts to recreate the lighting failed. The reflection always returned. Every test shoot afterward behaved as expected. Only that one take contained the anomaly. Some believe it was a lucky accident. Others aren't so sure, because sometimes the absence of an image is more revealing than its present. Fact 14. A hidden message in the film began appearing outside of it. Some viewers noticed a faint message above a doorway in one shot. "Don't look upstairs." It was never addressed in the dialogue, never commented on in the script. But soon after, something strange happened. That exact phrase began showing up around the production, written on grip tape, scrawled in chalk near trailers, even carved lightly into the wood of a lighting crate. Crew members denied responsibility. The handwriting didn't match anyone. Security footage was checked. It showed nothing. Eventually, the message was found etched into the inside of a camera case. Production shut down for half a day. The studio called it paranoia. The crew called it something else. It stopped appearing after that, but the phrase still lives online, whispered in fan circles. A warning without context, a command with no speaker, and no one ever did look upstairs. Fact 15. One actress said she didn't play the role, she remembered it. At a rare Q&A session years later, a supporting cast member spoke briefly about her time on the Sentinel. She didn't share funny set stories or technical anecdotes. Instead, she said, "It felt like reenacting something I'd already lived through." She claimed certain scenes were identical to dreams she'd had months before accepting the role. She recognized the church interior before seeing it, knew lines before reading them. She even said the room she was assigned during production matched one from those dreams down to the cracked window. When asked if she believed in fate, she paused. Not fate, alignment. What unsettled fans was her closing comment. It wasn't a script, it was a memory, just not mine. She hasn't acted since. Fact 16. A strange scene appears only on one version of the film and no one knows why. The Region 4 DVD release, distributed in select parts of South America and Australia, contains a scene absent from all other versions. It comes after the credits, in complete silence. The camera drifts slowly down the nave of the church, empty, still, and bathed in deep amber light. A figure is seen at the far end, but no motion, no music, no context. Then, in the final frame, a single word fades in at the bottom corner: stay. No commentary ever mentioned this edition. The production company has no record of authorizing it. The master used to create the Region 4 disc is unaccounted for. When fans brought it up online, the studio denied its existence. But bootlegs prove otherwise. Frame for frame, the scene exists, but only there. One theory suggests it was inserted deliberately by someone in post, a message not meant for audiences but for someone else. Who, exactly, remains a mystery. Fact 17. An alternate ending surfaced once, then vanished. During a horror film festival in Milan, an Italian print of the Sentinel was screened. Viewers immediately noticed a major difference. The final scene was completely altered. Instead of walking away from the church, the protagonist enters a second door behind the altar. The screen fades to black. No credits, no music, just darkness for over a minute. Then, a static flash, just one frame with a string of numbers burned into the corner. No one could explain what the numbers meant. The reel was returned, and no official version of that ending has ever aired again. The festival issued no comment. The distributor claimed the print was standard, but attendees insist they saw something else, something quieter, something incomplete. A few seconds of the alternate ending were uploaded online, briefly, then removed by a copyright claim filed by an unnamed entity. That's what scared people the most. No one claimed to own the footage, but someone still took it down. Fact 18. The footsteps in the staircase scene don't belong to the actress and never did. One of the film's most memorable sequences involves the protagonist ascending the church's main stairs in near total silence, except for the sound of her footsteps echoing around her. The production attempted dozens of ADR passes to capture the right tone. None of them felt right, until the sound editor decided to record them himself alone, late at night, in an empty parking garage. He submitted the final take. The timing was perfect. The rhythm, uncanny. But afterward, he refused to listen to the track again, claimed something was wrong in the echo pattern, not technically psychologically. There's an extra step that doesn't match the movement, he said, one behind hers. He resigned 2 days later and left the industry entirely. To this day, fans who isolate the audio swear they hear it too. One extra footfall, where there shouldn't be one. Fact 19. A famous director visited the set uninvited and left without explanation. One afternoon during production, an unfamiliar man arrived on location. No credentials, no camera crew, just a long coat and a quiet demeanor. The production assistant on duty almost turned him away until someone recognized him. He was an acclaimed European filmmaker, known for psychological horror with a deep interest in esoteric symbolism. He said nothing beyond a polite greeting, then asked to observe filming for a few minutes. The director allowed it. They spoke privately for less than 10 minutes in the back of the church. No one heard what was said. No one recorded it. When the visitor left, he handed the cinematographer a small envelope. Inside, a handwritten note that read, "Some thresholds should remain metaphor." No statement ever confirmed his visit. When asked years later, the director denied it. The filmmaker himself claimed he'd never heard of the movie, but the note remains. Handwriting experts compared it to archive journal. It matched. Fact 20. The lead character's name hides a meaning that changes everything. The main character's full name, Elandra Voss, is barely shown. It appears once, on a document flashed briefly in the second act. No one says it aloud, no one acknowledges it. But one fan noticed something odd. Reversed and phonetically adapted into Latin roots, the name forms a rough translation, Guardian of the Seventh Gate. That might sound abstract, but the number 7 recurs throughout the film. 7 steps, 7 candles, 7 identical doorways. A motif? Perhaps, but also a code. In an earlier draft of the script, the protagonist was described as not just passing through, but placed. The implication? She wasn't the visitor. She was the lot. Whether intentional or accidental, the name shifts everything. It reframes the story not as a haunting, but as an assignment. Not someone discovering the gate, but someone meant to stand before it. Sometimes, the most important characters aren't the ones who act. They're the ones who remain. Bonus fact, this film might not have been the Sentinel at all. Before production began, industry insiders whispered about a different project. Threshold listed briefly in pre-production databases before vanishing. Its premise? A woman inherits a church filled with locked doors, each guarding a memory that doesn't belong to her. No announcement was ever made about the film being canceled. No casting shifts, no trade reports. It simply disappeared right as the Sentinel, 2006, emerged in its place. Oddly, some concept art released during early promotion still bears the watermark TH1 in the corner. One storyboard features a scene never filmed, 7 robed figures circling a woman as she weeps in reverse motion. Crew members later admitted that during filming, they occasionally received script pages without a title at all. Just dialogue, just directions. As if the story was reassembling itself under a new name. So which film did they make? Maybe The Sentinel was a title assigned to something older, something that refused to vanish, a gate that closed behind another project but opened onto this one. The truth is buried somewhere between drafts. But if the wrong name was spoken, maybe the right door opened. Which version of this film do you think we watched? The one that was planned or the one that slipped through? Tell us in the comments what detail made you pause, and whether you believe this was ever just a movie or something else entirely. If these stories unsettled you good, that means you're listening. Subscribe for more hidden truths, overlooked films, and the things they don't explain, because sometimes silence is the loudest part.